Hey everybody, welcome back to another video with Rebel Resource here. It's been a while. After my Madison 1K, I think I took about a week break from really playing. And then I also participated in one of the bigger online tournaments that is casual in format, but has a lot of top players, a lot of really good players in it. And so I took second in that tournament. So just been kind of doing that. I want to do an analysis on that tournament, but some other YouTubers like Thork have already, Thorrk, have already done that. So what I want to do today is actually talk through some of the previews from Shadow of the Galaxy and actually talk through the decks that I'm testing specifically. I think what's interesting is like you can see all the spoiler reviews and different cards, but what's really interesting is, and if you're like me, you probably feel this, the game with just one set was incredibly complicated as is. And now that we're throwing all these cards in there, and what's interesting about this game is, you know, something like Magic the Gathering, I would like look at spoilers of a new set, and it'd be very, very obvious that like most of the commons were just so bad they would never see competitive play. And what's really bizarre about Star Wars Unlimited is that it's got a much flatter power level. And I've noticed that, the power level is much flatter, meaning that more cards in a release are actually potentially competitively viable. Everything from most of the commons all the way to the legendaries. And that means that there are more cards to consider, and that adds to the complexity of decision making to deck building. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of offer you guys some of the decks that some of the decks that I've been working on. I'm going to pull out some cards that I think have really kind of like, whoa, I see these cards doing well because similar effects are doing well in the meta. This is by no means a comprehensive analysis. It's just kind of, I didn't even script this at all. Honestly, I think, you know, if I try and script every video, I'm never going to get a video out. It's too much. So this is just kind of my free-floating thoughts as somebody who plays Star Wars Unlimited a lot, has played at a high level, has played competitively, and has won competitively. So let's see. Can I actually just get the leaders here? Let's see. Cards. Rarity type. Here we go. All right, so let's talk about the leaders from this set. So there's two leaders that haven't been shown yet. Han Solo and Jabba, which there's been a photo shown that Han Solo is going to be red, I think, and Jabba is going to be green. So red, white, and green, black for Jabba. All right, let's go here to the leaders, and then that'll kind of... All right, here we go. So here are the first four leaders that I'm going to walk through and just kind of talk high level, get maybe 5 seconds, 10 seconds each. Mandalorian seems really good. Unfortunately, he comes out at 6, and he's got the same stats as Boba Fett from leader unit from set 1, and he comes out on 6 instead of 5. Again, I think Boba Fett's one of the sort of standout leaders still. You know, he really just comes out at a weird time for how his stat line looks. Yeah, when you play an upgrade, let's pull this up. Yeah. Let's see here. So on his leader side, when you play an upgrade, you may exhaust this leader if you do exhaust an enemy unit with 4 HP or less. And then on the other side, it goes up to 6. So it's very, very good. I think this is going to be playable in some sort of tempo control deck. I expect to see that. I tried testing aggro and mid-range with this. Did not work. You're going to be looking at like a long-term control deck here with sort of... hero control and using upgrades and bounties and stuff like that to tap things down and then killing stuff by attacking into it. Lando, long story short, I really like this card. As a Sabine player, it's cool to see another leader come out on the 4 resource turn, but he is so bad right now. Some of you might disagree. I've played 30, 40 games with this card. I played against it. I played with it. And the whole concept of having to play a card using smuggle costs 2 less. That's amazing, right? That's great. Then defeat a resource. It's like, it's just not worth it. And the reality is, you know, imagine control now and imagine with set 2, it's going to be just as good. So this leader is an auto lose into control, because if you're going to go off and go crazy and play multiple cards a turn with Lando and defeat all your resources, that's great, but control can stabilize pretty quickly. And all of that gas you just dumped is going to be soaked up and taken care of by your opponent. So Lando just seems not very good right now. Bo-Katan, I have not tested with her. She seems kind of interesting. Definitely not a leader. If you attack with the Mandalorian unit this phase, deal 1 damage to your unit. It just seems very not useful. And I have not tested her because her action side is just so not useful to me right now that I'm not even going to test her. I've done a lot of testing with Kylo Ren. I have not tested the green version of Kylo Ren, but Kylo Ren has felt pretty weak in my opinion in an aggro deck and in that mid-range deck where he tries to get out early with ECL and tries to play Palpatine's Return. So he can actually discard Palpatine or Darth Vader with his effect and then use Palpatine's Return to play it a turn early. I don't think it's worth it. Even if you're able to combo off, I've seen people, 50-50, they pull off the perfect combo, get out Darth Vader or Palpatine early, and they're still losing. It's the whole deck is built around that combination of cards, and it's not good enough in my opinion. Bosk has high potential, and you're going to hear me say this a lot here. I think that we have a couple bounties right now. They're all like commons right now. And I think we're going to get some rare or legendary bounties before the set is done being spoiled. And that's going to make Bosk really good. Deal 1 damage to a unit with bounty. You may give it +1/+0 for this phase. So you can give your own units that have bounties a buff. Or on his front side, when you collect a bounty, you may collect that bounty again. Use this ability only once each round. Very strong. He comes out on 5. He's hard to kill. I mean, he's a 4/6, so he dodges takedown and he dodges Fell the Dragon, the two premier leader removal spells, right? Removal events that hit leaders. So he does a good job dodging that. I think he's quite good. I think that somebody's going to crack this. They're going to get the whole value out of this card, and it's going to happen. Hunter, have not tried much with Hunter yet. He's got just a whole Yu-Gi-Oh paragraph here. Pay 1, reveal a resource you control. If it shares a name with a friendly unit, return the resource to its owner's hand and put the top card of your deck into play as a resource. I don't really know. It doesn't seem very good. I mean, if I have like a Sabine Wren or a Leia Organa or, I don't know, Spec Force Soldier, you can name Spec Force Soldier and return it to your hand. Maybe in a toolbox deck. I just have a hard time seeing this one being really good. He does come out on 7, so he is definitely a late game card, and I'm wondering if basically this is going to be like a heroism green control that uses U-Wing, and then Hunter as a closer with like U-Wings and stuff like that, and then his ability can help you pull back. Like let's say you resource an Echo Base Defender, a Sentinel 4/3, and you have one out and you want to return another one to your hand so you can play, your second copy that you resourced on turn 1. So there's some interesting stuff there. Again, have not tested. I have tested Boba Fett, and oh my gosh, is this card good. When you play a unit that has one or more keywords, you may exhaust this leader. If you do, give any unit, not that unit, any unit you control +1/+0 for the entire turn. Not for an attack, not for a defend, but for the whole phase. Very good. And then on the flip side, he's a 4/7, comes out on turn 6. Each friendly unit, on the 6 resources, each other friendly unit that has one or more keywords gets +1/+0. So where is it? Yeah, here it is. This is not by any means a competitive deck. I'm just throwing copies of cards in here and trying them out. So first off, this deck doesn't need Energy Conversion Lab because it has this card called Timely Intervention. So Timely Intervention is a 1-cost event that essentially turns any card in your hand into an ambush card. And you can also smuggle it for 2 instead of 1. So you can play it for an extra 1. So if you think about it this way, if you have this card in your hand, you basically pay 1 extra, and you can give most of the units in your deck, or all of the units in your deck, ambush. And there's a ton of other cards that already have ambush. So you have Modded Cohort, which is a 2/4 with ambush and raid 2. And it's actually, if that's the first card you've played, or it doesn't have to be the first, but you can actually tap Boba Fett to make it a 5/4 on turn 3. So this thing can kill almost anything. It's very, very strong. Comes out on turn 3. You can play Echo Base Defender and pump it to make it a 5/3, so it can, things that have 5 toughness can't kill it. Same thing with Admiral Akbar. And then I also am trying out this card, the Outflank card, which is basically Rebel Assault without the +1/+0, attack with 2 units, one at a time. For one resource is like a finisher. It's definitely interesting. Trying it out, and I think might be like a sideboard card against control or something like that. And then I'm also trying out the capture cards, because capture is very, very strong right now. Essentially what capture is like it just removes a unit from play if you meet the requirements of the card. And sometimes the requirements are you have to be in the same arena, or sometimes the requirements are, hey, there are no requirements, right? It's just like straight up capture this card. If you're in space, you can capture a ground. And there's some of that stuff going on right now, and it's actually quite scary. Because it erases all tokens, damage, shield tokens, experience tokens, upgrades fall off. It's very, very strong. It's kind of like in Magic when you exile a creature and return it to play. It's a very similar mechanic. So this deck gets to play Battlefield Marine A-Wing, of course, which does trigger Boba Fett because it has the raid 2. Anything with the red letter text on it will trigger Boba Fett. You play Traitorous. I'm just trying that out to see how that feels. I'm playing the Adelphi Patrol Wing because that seems like a good card. I'm not playing Fleet Lieutenant because I'm not playing like all Rebels, playing a ton of Rebels. I feel like maybe I should be playing Fleet Lieutenant. Again, just testing. But the Adelphi Patrol Wing off a U-Wing, like if you can play, Green Squadron A-Wing and then Adelphi Patrol Wing off of a U-Wing reinforcement, you can then attack with something else and give it +2/+0. It seems really good. Mace Windu is insane in this deck because he attacks for 6 with Ambush if you can trigger the Boba Fett ability. I almost wonder if you play more Mace Windus, and he's basically this deck's Luke Skywalker. Like some of the Han Solo decks or Luke Skywalker decks are playing Luke, and you could play U-Wing and pull a Luke out. Mace Windu's nuts. Like if they're tapped out or if they don't have an answer, you can just like attack in with him again and again and take out their whole entire fleet. Really, really liking this deck. This is like a mid-range deck that's got really good late game with U-Wing. And I think those decks are going to do well into the meta because U-Wing is the ultimate anti-control card. Mercenary Company, because we're not playing Energy Conversion Lab, we are not going to play Steadfast Battalion. This has Ambush and Overwhelm. So it's basically, you cost 1 more and it's a Steadfast that has both Ambush and Overwhelm in 1. I might consider playing Steadfast, honestly, because if you play Timely Intervention, the turn that Boba Fett comes out on turn 6, you can still ambush with Steadfast for 6, and it becomes a 7/7. So I'm still wondering. I do like that this card just does something on its own. You can play Resupply. This deck feels really, really strong right now. It has captures. It has like removal. It has late game potential. It has ambush. It has, still units. It's got pump. It's got tricks and stuff or tactics rather is what they're called. These type of events. They're just really good events. You have Resupply. It just seems like a good deck. There's a lot of toolboxy units like Ketsu Onyo to take care of some of those. Some of these decks can get shield tokens very early and they can be kind of annoying. And Ketsu Onyo is an all-star. I think that this card's going to be played in every aggro deck or every heroism deck. I think that she belongs actually in the main board, even just with Saboteur as a 3/2 and then having that ability seems really good. She does die to a lot of annoying stuff like Death Trooper and Greedo and all that kind of stuff. But I do think it is probably worth it, considering that she does pop shield tokens and experience tokens. All right, moving on here. I've been testing out with Grand Inquisitor. There have been a lot of 3-costed cards that are perfect targets for Grand Inquisitor. So this deck is playing Deathwatch Loyalist, which is a 3/3 Grit Overwhelm. And so if you play this on turn 2 and activate Grand Inquisitor on it, it becomes a 5/1 with Overwhelm. Very, very strong. And Grit means that it doesn't, raid gives you the bonus on attack. Grit is a static buff. So this becomes a 5/1, meaning that it'll probably trade in with anything that doesn't have a shield that attacks it. And your opponent's going to want to remove this as soon as possible, right? Attacking in for 5 on turn 2 plus whatever your turn 1 drop was, your opponent can often be at 10 life. If you play Dr. Evazan turn 1, activate this, attack for 3, play this turn 2, attack for 3, they're at 6, attack for 5, they're at 11 on turn 2. And you've only played units, that's it. No tricks, nothing. No sneak attacks, no dumping out your hand, just an average curve. And it's very, very common to be able to pull that off. And then I'm playing a couple bounties in here because the card Jango Fett is an absolute all-star. It's a 4-costed rare. It's a 3/6. When you attack a unit with bounty, that Jango Fett gets +3/+0 in overwhelm. So he becomes a 6/6 with overwhelm. And whenever he defeats a unit, attacks and defeats a unit, draw a card. So Jango Fett gets you cards back in your hand. He can get buffed from all of these like burn spells. And then I'm playing Rich Reward because I think the yellow one is not very good right now. I've tested it. This one seems decent. And the fact that what sucks about bounties is if you're trying to claim a bounty, you're going to want to be able to play a bounty and claim it the same turn if you can. Because if your opponent can disrupt you from claiming that bounty can sit out there the whole game. And Grand Inquisitor allows you to disrupt that, or to prevent disruption by attacking and removing the unit right away. And so sometimes Jango Fett can attack, a 2/3 unique unit with a guild target. Jango Fett attacks in, does 3 overwhelm. This does 3 because it's a unique unit, and then you get to draw a card. I mean, that's a lot of value. When I pull that kind of stuff off, my opponent has a hard time coming back. And then there's another card that was printed, Clan Challengers. It's a 3/6, so it can be readied by Grand Inquisitor. It has raid 3, so it attacks for 6. This card is absolutely bonkers. If you can sneak attack this card in, and your opponent doesn't have an answer, you can attack for 6, ready it up, attack for 6. That's 12 damage on a 2-card combo. I think that's one of the highest 2-card combos in the game. It does require 1, 2, 3, 4 actions to do. It's a lot of actions. But if you can time it right and make your opponent kind of claim initiative and then you slam this and get all that in, it can be very devastating. And sometimes they just straight don't even have the answer even without the initiative. Krakistan is really good. I can't say his name. Cranstanton. I don't even know. Cranstanton. There we go. He's a 3/7, so he can be readied multiple times by Grand Inquisitor without fear of dying. When he's played, if an enemy has a bounty, which we do have 4, sometimes they're playing cards like Dr. Evazan where it has a bounty, so he comes in readied. You can attack for 3, ready him up with Grand Inquisitor, attack for 3 again. Very strong. Seven Sister, again, similar. It's a 3/6. It can be readied by Grand Inquisitor. It's a very good card. Fifth Brother. All that kind of stuff. Punishing One, it's another card that readies. It's a very aggressive deck, but it has some late game with the Ruthless Raiders. If you sneak attack Ruthless Raiders in, that does a total of 8 damage on turn, I believe, 4. And so you can really get your opponent low. And the card that I'm expecting to be very expensive and to be played in almost every cunning deck that's villainy is Bazine Natal. I mean, this is a 1/3. And when played, look at your opponent's hand. You may discard one of those cards. If you do, that player draws a card. And it can be smuggled for 4 instead of 2. This card is so good. It allows you to pick out your opponent's answers. And that's what's very, very good about it. So I forgot to do this for the Boba Fett deck, and I'm going to do that in a second. But if you were to ask me, hey, Ryan, what do you think would make this deck even better? I'd say 2 things. Better bounties to manipulate Jango and Krakistan. And Punishing One, right? You want better bounties to be able to manipulate these 9 cards and to make them have a lot of value. That's very good. You want better bounties. 2, I would like this deck is very weak in space, right? We're playing Punishing One, 7th Fleet. Kylo's TIE Silencer is only in here because it's a turn 1 play. I would love to see a 2-drop Cunning Villainy 2-drop. Rare legendary that's like a 1/4 or a 2/3 that does something when it enters or it has some effect and we can ready it turn 1. That's what I would like to see, because that would really allow us to go over the top here and really be aggressive in space and be aggressive on ground. This deck is very heavy on ground, but if we could pivot a little bit more into space, I think this deck would be flexible enough to be tier 1. I've actually had so much fun with this deck right now that I've almost considered trading into a Showcase GI, because there's something in me that says this could be one of the best decks in the next set. I don't know. I'm not sure. Something about it. I just feel like something's going to crack with this deck and the spoilers, and it could be very, very strong. That's all hypothetical, though. So for Boba Fett, the green Boba Fett, what would I like to see to make this go over the top? To be honest, this deck kind of already has it all. I feel like this is going to be a safe deck to play right away in the meta. It's very strong. It's a good mid-range deck, does a lot of damage early, does a lot of damage mid-game, and has a lot of late-game potential. And the Boba Fett leader unit is just ridiculous if he sticks, right? He gives all of your keyworded units, which I believe is every single unit in the deck besides the Adelphi Patrol Wing and Battlefield Marine and Fang Fighter. So this deck has a lot of utility. I honestly, I've almost considered like playing for a cause I believe in, because we're playing so many heroism cards. Like, dang, can you imagine having burn in this deck as well? Like maybe even just like one copy to be able to rip a burn spell into sequence your next draw. It might actually be worth it. I feel like this deck's very strong. I feel like, to be honest, this almost kind of it's mid-range, but it's also fast with this pump from Boba Fett. So I really like this card, or this deck. All right, so what else have I been testing? I've not just been testing new leaders, I've been testing the old leaders. Double Cunning Boba. When we saw a new adventure and we saw Bazine and Dr. Evazan, I was like, I gotta try and put this deck together. Ignore the sideboard here. This is just like a playtesting sideboard. So McClunky is crazy. Return a friendly unit underworld, friendly non-leader underworld unit to your hand if you deal 0 damage to a unit. So a lot of times you end up returning Dr. Evazan, or you return Bazine to replay her on turn 2. You can do that. So you can play McClunky, kill something, return something to your hand, and then replay it. Not ideal, but it is something you can do. And sometimes playing McClunky and playing Bazine twice means you can look at your opponent's hand and take out all the cards you don't want to see in that matchup. I think Bazine is it's a high skill cap card, but it has a massive payoff if you're very, very good at the game. Again, this deck is still playing a lot of ridiculous stuff. Bodhi Rook is just so good. It's going to be even better with some of the events that I'm seeing. Cunning is one of the best events in the game still. What else are we looking at? The shell is all relatively the same, besides some removal, Dr. Evazan, Bazine, and what are we looking at here? So a new adventure. Also, there's a new card called Triple Dark Raid. I have not tested it out yet, partially because there's not that many vehicles in this deck. I think there's 9 vehicles in this deck. That's not good enough to play that card. So that'll come in a second. A new adventure, return a non-leader unit that costs 6 or less to its owner's hand. Then its owner may play it for free. So you can play this on your opponent's stuff to knock off upgrades. But what you can do is return a ton of other stuff to your hand and then replay it for free. So you can return Cantina Bouncer, so double bounce. So a new adventure serves as sort of a 2-costed Waylay if you have Cantina Bouncer out. That's why I'm not playing Waylay in the deck. I took Waylay out for a new adventure. It is circumstantial, absolutely, but even in a pinch, playing Cartel Spacer and tapping something down, this deck has 1, so Cartel Spacer 1, Bazine 2, 3 Bodhi Rook, I'll count Ambush as one played, 4 Bosk, 5 Cantina Bouncer, 6 Syndicate Lackeys, and 7 Fett's Fire Spray. We have 7 shielded. I won't count because technically, yes, you could reshield your unit, but who cares? It seems kind of weak. We have 7 targets for a new adventure. So you can play a new adventure on Bosk and re-ambush with him. You can play it on Cantina, Syndicate Lackeys to re-ambush, play it on Bodhi Rook to get a look at their hand again. So if you have Bodhi Rook out, you can resource the other Bodhis and you can just use this card that only costs 2 to then get a look at your opponent's hand again. And it's very, very good. You don't want to run too many of these. And I think 2 is the limit here, but this card feels good. Now, that's the kind of Christmas land situation is, getting a Fett's Fire Spray, attacking with it, next turn, attacking with it, then play a new adventure, get to play it again for free, attack with it, because it comes in when played, if you control Boba Fett as leader, a unit, ready it. So you can play a new adventure and then ready Fett's Fire Spray, essentially, and clear all its damage, upgrades, whatever. So this card is very good at countering damage. It's good at countering bounties. It's good at countering entrenched. It's such a good card. And it's even a good aggressive card in some circumstances because you can give Dr. Evazan his shield again if you're worried about your opponents getting those 12 resources. You can do all that kind of stuff. I think that double yellow boba is probably going to give us trouble in the meta for set 2. It's just getting more tools. And I believe there was a cunning. Okay, if you were to say, hey, Ryan, what else does this deck need to get better from set 2? I would say this deck needs another space unit that is mid-early game, probably early game. So we have Cartel Spacer for turn 1, which does nothing, and we have 7th Fleet Defender, which is a 3/2 shielded unit. Both of these cards are decent. They're decent cards. They're not like game-breaking. They're just really good value. They're cool. If we got a really good 2 or 3 or 4 drop space unit that did stuff that you want double yellow Boba to do, right? Discard from hand, make their events cost more, return something to their hand, whatever that is, I would love to see that. And luckily, we actually did see that there's some sort of TIE Phantom fighter that was leaked, and we can't see anything else other than part of the art, and that it's cunning and villainy and it's a space unit. We don't know its cost, we don't know its rarity, none of that. But we are getting a space unit that's in cunning villainy, and it probably is like a rare or legendary because it was on the box art. So that is promising. This deck will probably be very strong. I might consider pulling in things like Bounty Hunter Crew now that I'm playing a new adventure. I do think that this meta might get a bit more grindy because there's so much value going on. Skilled players are going to draw games out very long. So this is a very open testing list here. I'm probably going to change this up as we move. Alrighty, so my girl Sabine, you got to keep Sabine going. I feel like, it's Sabine. Come on, guys. I'm going to be testing this out. And believe it or not, I think that I have it on good record from personal testing and from other testers that Yellow Sabine might still be the best aggro deck in set 2. May not be a surprise to you all, because we really haven't even seen another aggro leader besides Lando. And to be honest, he just isn't good enough. It is a very interesting and fun, and I wanted that leader to be good. He's not good enough. Can you imagine playing like an aggro double cunning heroism, build with cunnings and stuff like that? That'd be crazy. Unfortunately, just not good enough. So what am I doing here? I am actually going more aggressive. I took out the Alliance X-Wings for Cartel Turncoats since it's a turn 1 play, and this is a filler card. When you have like a floating 1 resource, sometimes you can dump this. Yes, the bounty is draw card, but a 2/3 space unit is so good. If I can play 2 of these on turn 1, kid you not, I've just won games on doing that. If my opponent doesn't draw space and they don't draw any removal, follow up with a red 3, attack for 6 on turn 2, then attack for 9 on turn 3. It's just game over. L337 is very interesting. So you'll notice I've taken out a lot of the Rebel package here. I've been testing this out because unfortunately the meta right now has a lot of capture that I've been testing against good players. The capture stuff is really good. Like, it's very good. If you can't rescue something right away, it just feels like they got to cheat something out of play against you, and that is really frustrating. So L3 is a 2/2 shielded unit early, which is actually quite good in Sabine because it's probably going to survive, or it can rescue a captured unit. Very good. Ketsu Onyo, I'm testing this out. Probably a sideboard card. When this unit deals combat damage to a base, you may defeat an upgrade that costs 2 or less. So bounties and shields and experience tokens. She does a great job at shutting that down. I did cut Wing Leader. The reason for that is I'm only playing, 6 turn, I guess technically Leia, but that shit, I don't count her. I'm playing only 8 1-drops or turn 1 plays that are rebels. And I found myself not wanting Wing Leader in deck building. Now that I'm done deck building, I do think maybe 2 copies of Wing Leader are acceptable because you do have Sabine and you do want to target Sabine with experience tokens so she can live. I think that's still going to be something we're going to want to do. Fleet Lieutenant is a for sure auto include because Fleet Lieutenant can target rebels and give them +2, or he can target another unit and they can still attack and it doesn't get the buff. And so I think that's still good. It's still action economy. And I still think even in a worst case scenario, targeting, playing Fleet Lieutenant, targeting Ketsu Onyo for 3 and getting 2 actions for 1 is still something that it's not great. It's still something you can play though. So what am I looking for? What would I want for this deck? What I would want for this deck is I would want a, I would want like a 3-drop cunning heroism ship with Saboteur. That is exactly what I would like to see. We have good Saboteur cards. By the way, Saboteur is such a relevant keyword right now. We're gonna need that. Saboteur is super essential to this meta because there's a lot of shield token. I mean, they printed another shield token leader with Kira. Luke Skywalker's getting really good. We're gonna need Saboteur. So I would love to see a really good space unit, maybe even a top end space unit for Sabine. What I mean by top end is 5 to 6 resources and something that's really strong, like 5 power, 6 power, does something crazy when it comes out. I would love to see that because the whole Yellow Sabine list, the whole purpose of it is it's a very space heavy list. And so by being space heavy, you can push a lot of damage in space. Your opponent is not active in space as much. And I think there's just overall less stuff in space in the game. And that makes this deck very good. One other test I'm working on, and I don't have it to show right now, is just like 100% space. So you cut out like all these 2 drops. You play wing leaders and you play the Y wing. You play the Alliance X wings. You play Cartel Turncoats, Green Squadron A wing, Red 3 Falcon. You play so many space units. You're actually playing as many space units as you are ground. That seems interesting. I think this deck might have 52 cards in it. I'll have to check, but I am playing Wrecker. He is a 7/6 overwhelm right now. Very good. Dodges a lot of stuff. He's hard to deal with. And if you sneak attack him in, he could attack for 7 and kill something when he enters. So sometimes you can blow up that pesky restore unit with Wrecker and then smack in for 7, maybe kill a Sentinel, get a bunch of overwhelm damage in. Or if you just play him for 6, he's still really good because when he comes out, he does kill a unit most likely on the ground. And you can actually hit leader units. And so if your opponent Boba Fett's, the next turn you can slam Wrecker and just blow up their Boba Fett or whatever. And that feels really good. And I do think Wrecker is going to be one of the better aggro cards because it does have this weird removal, and a lot of the problematic cards against aggro are on the ground. So being able to blow up anything on the ground is going to be really good. Poe Dameon is insane. You can sneak attack him in on the Sabine turn, and when you attack with him, you attack for 6, and you can discard up to 3 cards and choose one of these modes for each card you discard. You can only choose that mode once. And one of the modes is deal 2 damage to a unit or base, defeat an upgrade, or an opponent discards a card. So being able to defeat or to just do 2 damage to base, that means that this card does 8 damage, which K2 does 7, and I still think K2 is the better sneak attack target. He does 7 when he hits, but having another late game sneak attack target isn't bad, and just playing this on turn 4 feels really strong. So these are the decks I've been working on. I was hoping to give you guys some insight into what's going on and give you a heads up on the meta, give you a jump start. These are all lists that I made that I was working on in a couple groups of mine. None of these are taken from anybody else. And this, I will say, this whole meta has shown to be pretty promising with some of the cards that they're showing. And I'm not worried about power creep that much. I haven't seen anything in the new set that has blown me away. To be honest, I think that overall, the leaders in set 2 do not feel super strong. Most of them feel kind of mediocre right now. We have about half the set to see, so that is a judgment to take with a grain of salt. I think that the leaders in set 1 are very strong. I think the cards in set 1 are going to be very important in set 2. I think that we're actually going to see more set 1 cards played than set 2 cards played for a while, which is a good thing if you've invested in this game. That means that the cards you've bought are probably going to be playable. They're probably going to be relevant, especially those legendaries. They're going to be very important in the next set. So I got more content coming. I would love to do a review of my tournament, and I got a showdown coming up in a couple days, and I hope to take that and get those Mace Windu promos so I can have bling for my Mace Windu deck in set 2. So let me know what you guys think, and if you want to see more of this content, let me know down below. Let me know what deck you want to see. I think when the set's fully in about like 3 weeks, I'm probably going to do another one of these videos of like an updated testing video. Because right now, to be honest, set 1 feels very stagnant for me. I'm not testing set 1 anymore. I've moved on to set 2. And I think that if you want to do well in the meta in set 2, you need to start testing now. And if you don't have time to do that, you can subscribe to my channel and I will be giving you my take on what decks I think are going to be good and what cards are going to be good in those decks, especially with those new leaders that we're all excited to play with. Thanks very much and see you next time.